negotiations which have kind of been stumbling along, and they look like they were getting close to a deal, but it feels a bit like the horizon or a mirage. You know, the closer you get to it, the further it seems to recede into the distance.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Here's the Scoop from NBC News. I'm Yasmin Bastugian. So we have new strikes in the Middle East from the U.S. military, Iran, and Israel. Is this the new status quo? Plus, Maine Democratic Senate candidate Graham Platner is facing another scandal, this time it's sexting. But do Maine voters even care? And our very own NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel is dishing on culinary quirks of his job. All right, so the U.S. military says it carried out self-defense strikes on Iranian radar and drone control sites, while Iran says it targeted an air base used in the U.S. attack. But is it an all-out war again? Not yet, according to both of them. Instead, Iran says it has stopped talking. They say they've called off negotiations with the U.S. and are again considering fully closing the Strait of Hormuz. Why, you ask? Because Israel has expanded the war in Lebanon, even with a quote-unquote ceasefire still officially ongoing there. That is according to Iranian state media. So is this simmer of war the new normal? And will Israel and Lebanon be the real nail in the coffin of peace? With that, I want to bring in NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel. Hi, Richard.
It's great to talk to you, as always. How are you?
Good to have you. U.S. and Iranian militaries are back at it again. They are continuing, Richard, to accuse each other of breaking their agreements, but there is no serious consequences or harm so far, it seems. Is this the new status quo, this kind of simmer of war, at least until November?
I would be very cautious in thinking that it is, because every day that goes by and each one of these incidents is a near miss. And just today, for example, there was an exchange of fire. And as you rightly described, both sides say this is self-defense. Both sides accuse the other of starting it. American troops are at war. They're enforcing a blockade against Iran, which is an act of war. They are off their shore. They are attacking ships. CENTCOM just put out a statement trying to dock in Iranian ports. So from Iran's perspective, it is acting in self-defense as well whenever it fires. So there was this latest incident. We don't need to go through all the details, but the U.S. destroyed some radar command and control sites. Iran responded firing 2 ballistic missiles at U.S. troops in Kuwait, and both of them were shot down, and no one was injured. But what if that had gone differently? What if one of those ballistic missiles today had gotten through and killed half a dozen American soldiers or something like that? Or something similar happens tomorrow? Or one of these ships in Hormuz hits a sea mine and goes down? Anything like this could happen at any time. So I worry about this sense of complacency that, well, things will just keep bubbling along like this. President Trump told NBC a short while ago that, he's not in any rush, and he thinks that, this can go on for a while. And if it stays like this, I guess in theory it could. But there's so much risk, and the reality of covering conflicts for a long time is there's so much unpredictability of it. When you're firing explosive things at great distances at each other, things go wrong.
So then what is the strategy? I mean, is there a strategy? Because there is negotiations, then there's not negotiations because Iran has now stopped talking because of what is happening in Lebanon. And Iran and the U.S. are continuing to kind of, strike each other with no real, it seems, strategy behind it.
Well, I think we have 3 different strategies. So you have President Trump, who clearly thought this was going to be quick and easy, and it was going to be another Venezuela. And he keeps talking about Venezuela, sometimes transposing the names of Iran for Venezuela, and waxing on nostalgia about what a great operation that was, where U.S. commandos moved in quickly, removed Maduro, and put an American-friendly government in place without even having to change the regime. He thought it was going to be something pretty similar, and has said that much. Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu has wanted a war with Iran and a regime change war in Iran for decades, and finally got an American president who would help him do it. So he has his own strategy. And you have Iran. And Iran was trying to negotiate, and now it has faced tremendous leadership upheavals, and a new, much harder line government is there than the one that was in power before. And it's very bad news, at least as things are now, for the people whose name the revolution was, or the war was launched in. The protesters in Iran who took to the streets demanding change, demanding moderation, demanding more rights. What they have now is a government that is tougher, less willing to give people rights, at least that's what it seems at the moment, and feels in a position of strength and is asserting dominance over the Strait of Hormuz. So I think there isn't a strategy. You have competing strategies.
I want to talk, though, about Lebanon and to talk about Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, because strangely, the U.S. and Israel started this war with Iran together. The U.S. and Iran are engaging, as we just talked about, kind of these incremental strikes, but not pushing forward into an all-out war. Israel, though, is pushing further and further into Lebanon now. They just took this historic Crusader Beaufort castle. Could the war between Israel and Lebanon, which, by the way, is still in a ceasefire, in spite of all of the fighting that's still going on between them, could that be the ultimate nail in the coffin for a potential path to peace between Iran and the U.S.?
I don't know. There's so many nails and there's so many coffins. Let's just talk about this one particular war. And they're all interrelated because, as you mentioned, Iran broke off negotiations which have kind of been stumbling along, and they look like they were getting close to a deal, but it feels a bit like the horizon or a mirage. You know, the closer you get to it, the further it seems to recede into the distance. The reason the Iranians broke it off is because the war in Lebanon is intensifying. What we've been seeing now over the last couple of days, and even just over the course of today, is Israel intensifying its strikes, moving deeper into South Lebanon, moving more and more people out of the area. There have been mass eviction orders given to the people that living in South Lebanon, telling them, get out of the way because we're going to bomb Hezbollah, so for your own safety, leave. But those orders apply to about 17% of the country, an enormous amount of the country. Prime Minister Netanyahu said he's also going to extend attacks to the Dahia neighborhood, which is a Hezbollah stronghold in South Beirut. And that's causing a tremendous amount of concern in Beirut itself. And just a few minutes ago, Israeli media report that the Americans have asked the Israelis to hold off on those strikes in Dahia, at least for the moment. But either way, you're seeing a war that has been escalating quite significantly.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
By the way, though, we're going to ask you to hang tight because we're going to talk to John Allen about Maine Senate candidate Graham Platner. And then we have got a special segment for you today. You, Richard, get to choose your favorite flavor. I'm going to explain to you. Is that cool, though? Are you going to stick around with me?
Is this a scoop theme? Is this
Yes,
an ice cream flavor?
It's
Okay,
a scoop theme.
Let's do it.
So Maine's primary is June 9th, and we are watching the big race for Senate. Democratic Senate candidate Graham Platner has dealt with a lot of controversy since launching his campaign, but he's also gained a lot of popularity in spite of them. He is the presumptive nominee, but he's got another controversy now: sexting. He sent sexually explicit messages to women in the early days of his marriage, and his campaign confirmed that. He was married back in 2023. So will Maine voters care about Platner's sexting? And if they do, could it hurt Democrats' chances of taking the Senate? For that, I want to bring in Jonathan Allen, senior national politics reporter for NBC News. Hi, John.
Hi, Yasmin.
So Graham Platner, he's been talked about a lot in the lead up to the Maine primary. His wife actually was the one who basically told the campaign about these text messages to get ahead of any potential opposition research, right? How is he now responding to this latest controversy?
Well, the response has been from him to attack the messenger, basically, to say the woman who was working on his campaign as political director was not truthful in talking to the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. However, he seems to be parsing very closely when he says that, because the campaign has acknowledged that that these texts exist. So this is a problem for him, but unusual for him also in that he is somebody who has been trying to focus on the issues and has spent a lot of time in the last several weeks talking about his past posts on Reddit, sexually explicit messages with other women, the Nazi tattoo, Nazi link tattoo that he had, and on and on.
Yeah, and he had that tattoo covered up, and he has said that he didn't know that the image was associated with Nazi police, but he's had to deal with a lot of these controversies. And he's done it somewhat successfully because he is now the presumptive nominee for the state of Maine for Senate for the Democrats. So how has he maneuvered through those controversies, and how is he maneuvering through this one now?
Well, he's largely responded to them with some celerity, some quickness, and done it, and tried to put it behind him and move back to the issues, which is, I think, what campaign operatives would advise him to do. We'll have to see with this one. This seems like it might have a little bit more legs, just in the short period that it's been out there. His campaign has really been put on its heels.
Well, also, I will say, because some of the controversies that he was dealing with previously, whether it was the tattoo or the Reddit post, those things happened kind of more than a decade ago, or the tattoo he got more than a decade ago. This happened in 2023, so not that long ago.
When he got married, right? I mean, that's the other thing. And it's, the nature of his relationship with his wife is between him and his wife. And I think there are some people who are certainly going to, to say, if she makes her judgment and it's not a problem, they're okay voting for him. Other people say he's terrible for that or for some other reason not vote for him. I do think that there's not much room for him to get into a war over who's got a better history or worse history of sexually explicit texts between him and Susan Collins, the septuagenarian Maine senator who probably does not have a record of sexually explicit text. So, like, if he wants to make a contrast with her, he's probably going to want to talk about the price of gas or the price of eggs or housing affordability or even local issues in terms of, he's an oysterman, so the local Maine fishing industry.
Which, by the way, he has been successful at doing up until this point, right? He is kind of like the likeness. He's made in the likeness of Bernie Sanders. He's gotten the endorsement of Bernie Sanders, right? He talks a lot about kitchen table issues. It's one of the ways in which he has maneuvered away from these controversies and keeping it more focused on what Maine voters are most worried about. And you think about some of the baggage he's dealt with. I mean, his biggest primary opponent, Maine Governor Janet Mills, she dropped out of the race because Platner had gained so much popularity in the state, and she just didn't see a path to winning. So I think the big question is here, do Maine voters care? Are they going to care about this latest controversy?
I think we're going to have to wait to see if they care about this latest controversy, or more importantly, whether they care about the baggage, like the ultimate weight, which is what the critics of Platner hope they do, is that they kind of get tired of him and say, oh, well, this guy's got too much baggage and we really don't want him because of all of these things, not just the single one. He, in polls recently, has been leading, so these stories have not hurt him, or at least not prevented him from having a lead so far. I don't know that there's any reason to think that this will change. This is not, on the level of some of the other things that have come out, like, where he had Reddit messages downplaying sexual assault. Like, I think that is more broadly offensive than the question of whether he is faithful to his wife and his texting relationship. I think it's been a sort of new phenomenon to see all of these candidates have so many things come out about them in such a short period of time. Opposition research has gotten a lot better.
Yeah, but it's also the age of social media. I mean, it's the age of, like, having more places to put things on.
Right. Like, don't you tell your kids don't put anything on social media ever?
I mean, I'm very thankful that, some of these sites were not around when I was in college. Let's just say that.
Well, what did you put on there?
Yeah, exactly. No, but what do you think Platner's biggest draw is?
The biggest draw?
His biggest draw. Like, why do you think
he's a little bit
so
different? I think the Democrats, like him because he's a little bit different, because he does not feel like the typical establishment candidates that they've run in the past who feel inauthentic. Not just feel inauthentic, but in some cases have been lying to them. We came off a presidential election where the president of the United States and the people close to him hid his capability, right? Like, I mean, I don't want to say that there was a cover-up. I think that goes too far, but they certainly weren't straight up with the American people about his abilities and some of the things he was struggling with. They're coming off of the DNC and others around it telling them that he was fine, telling them that Kamala Harris was going to win. And so I think a lot of Democratic voters are just looking for somebody that doesn't feel like they're spinning BS.
Jonathan Allen, thank you.
Thanks, Jasmine.
So before we wrap up today's episode of Here's the Scoop, I'm going to bring back Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel for a new game that we are playing called Favorite Flavor. Richard, you ready?
Let's do it.
So we're calling this thing your favorite flavor. And here's how it works. I've got 3 categories for you. You're going to pick the category. I'm going to ask you a question based on that category, and you control your fate. You control the questions.
All right, do I have a buzzer in 60 seconds or something like that?
All of it.
All right, let's do it.
The first category is the dish. The second category is cherry on top. And the third category is an extra scoop. So which category, Richard Engel, would you like to go with
Ding,
first?
ding. I'll go with the extra scoop category.
Okay. What is the most unusual food you've ever had to eat to get an interview?
To get an interview?
Yeah. Like you sit down with a dignitary and you have to eat this.
Well, it wasn't exactly to get an interview. It was to get well enough to go to an interview. Does that count?
Yes. What was it?
So it's funny you should mention this. I was just talking to someone about this yesterday, remembering a time when I was in Baghdad. This was in 2000, after the 2003 invasion. So it must have been, I was there for 5 years. So it was sometime in that period. But I think it was like 2004, 5, 6. And I was sick as a dog. Something had happened. I'd eaten something. I was sweating. I was sore. I couldn't get out of bed. It was just miserable. We've all been there where you just want to sink into the bed and then you get out of it and the bed is wet with horror. It's a horrible thing. Anyway, I needed to go to work, right? I needed to keep doing the job and whatever. And one of my producers, fixer, local guy, an Iraqi guy named Zohair, brought and he brought the whole thing right from the kitchen, the whole pot of a dish. It's an Iraqi dish called pacha, and it's sheep head stew. And it has the whole thing. And it's supposed to make you big, strong man in every way and get better quickly. I had some. I was too debilitated to say no, and I was like, okay.
And did you feel better?
It didn't really make me feel better. and then I liked the guy, and I was like, thank you. I appreciate what you're doing, but will you please bring that awful thing out of this room immediately so I don't feel even worse. But eventually, yes, I got better. But I would put that at the top of the list.
All right. The other question from that category: have you ever almost gotten fired, and why?
Well, the day is young, so we will see. But one time I did get fired. I was working at a local paper in Cairo. It was a newspaper, and we had to it was one of these papers that used to put on under the door at hotels, and it was in English language. It was printed, it was distributed in Egypt, printed in Athens. I was the news editor at this newspaper. We're talking a long time ago. This is 1997. And I was doing a lot of stories that were pretty, let's say, controversial. Some of them were censored, and I was being followed by the security services at the time. This was during the days of Mubarak. And I was doing so many stories that were causing problems for the paper that the publisher called me one day and said, "We can't keep you here." He was getting too much heat. He was getting too much pressure. And it said, "Thanks, but no thanks, you got to go." So I became a freelancer. So yes, I did get sacked from that job.
Wow. Even Richard Engel gets fired from a job.
But it was still better than eating the soup.
All right. That is going to do it for us at Here's the Scoop from NBC News. I'm Yasmin Vasugian. We'll be back tomorrow with whatever the day may bring. And if you like what you heard and you saw, press the subscribe button. We'll see you tomorrow.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.